It's a thankless task at times, but you kind of know that when you sign up. I have to say, I thought Mark did a wonderful job with the piece in kind of describing some of the trials of a goalkeeper, that you, even when you're playing well, don't go away, that you still have to deal with, and not always in the back of your mind. To put this in perspective, and as a goalkeeper, if you're playing well, if you're having, or let me do it the other way. If you're a striker and you're playing well, and you're scoring, and you've got your defender in your pocket, you want that game to go on forever. You don't want to hear the referee's whistle ever. When you're a goalkeeper and you're playing well, you want the referee to blow the game off as soon as possible, because it's always in the back of your mind that as good as things are going, as well as I'm playing, if I make a mistake, that's what I'm going to be remembered for. So even when you're playing well, there's this shred of doubt, of negativity in that I want it to end now. I don't want the good times to continue, so to speak, which is an awful limbo to find yourself in when you're a goalkeeper.
Do you think it's entirely individual? Have you spoken to other goalkeepers about that kind of issue? Because in the piece, Mark speaks to a number of very highly respected goalkeepers. Ben Foster at Watford says that the game for a goalkeeper is 50% mental. And then also Tim Howard talking about, well, you have to have enormous self-belief, regardless of the kind of form that you're in. You mentioned when you're playing well, but regardless of the confidence you have or the type of personality, you should never lose that self-belief in yourself.
And that's a challenge, having that self-belief when everything you're hearing from outside is saying totally different. And to Ben Foster's point, I think for a goalkeeper, it's a whole lot more than 50% because of that noise that continues to come in, because you're hearing what people are saying in the stands. You pick up the newspaper and there's a negative headline, and inevitably nicknames, especially derogatory ones, follow you around almost regardless. Take David James, for example. Calamity James had become known throughout most of his career because he had a poor spell with Liverpool. That cost them. There's no getting away from that. But ultimately, you're talking about a goalkeeper who at one point had the record for the most number of clean sheets in the Premier League. I know Petr Cech has now leapfrogged them in that regard. Yet still, even when he went to Portsmouth, and as much success, well, he went to West Ham first of all, and then Pompey, and as much success as he had with Pompey, winning the FA Cup and the likes, every mistake is greeted with the same Calamity James headlines. Regardless of how good he'd been, regardless of his contributions, you're just one slip away from those negative memories and those negative headlines coming back up, which is why you find you insulate yourself in that as a player, you only talk to your goalkeeper coach. I paid no mind to what my head coach had to say. I only spoke to the other goalkeepers around me. And which is where you have the term goalkeepers union, because you know these are the only people who really understand exactly what you're going through, how fine the margins are between success and failure. The ball hitting me flush in the middle of my hand and going wide is half an inch away from it catching the bottom of my hand and it bouncing and going into the back of the net. Those are the margins that we deal with, that no other player on the field has to. Yet still, when you are able to play yourself out of a poor spell when you're an outfield player. If you're a striker, the old cliche is it only takes one to turn things around. When you're a goalkeeper, there is nothing you can do to change the rhetoric around your performances, as evidenced by David James, as I mentioned.
In those situations where you go to these dark places, perhaps a mistake has cost a goal or even some points or a game, did you find support in the dressing room usually from the outfield players? Did they look at you differently?
You find support. You get support from the outfield players, but oftentimes you still have to go home and deal with that yourself. You have to sit in the dark of your room at night or whatever it may be and replay that mistake over and over, especially when it costs you. It's one thing if you make a mistake and you still win 2-1, you can put those behind you. But when you make a mistake and you lose 1-0, it's a lot harder to work your way out of. When you make a mistake, a la Loris Karius in the Champions League final. Even then, I'm not sure how you get things back. Only, and I said this at the time, only a transfer out of that club and onto pastures new maybe allows you to press the reset button.
Is it getting harder given social media? And,
yes.
And does it get easier with age in terms of building the resilience you require as a goalkeeper? Is that why goalkeepers mature later?
Yes and yes. It gets easier with age because you know that these things are cyclical. You are better prepared, and it's just through experience in dealing with the negativity and just putting all that behind you, in knowing that tomorrow's a new day, and what happened yesterday, regardless of how horrific, really doesn't matter. You can deal with that. You also have other areas of your life that you focus on that become far more important. You get married, you have kids, whatever it is. Those things will always be far more important than any football game will be, and you recognize that. But as a young man, before you realize that, it becomes even tougher. And in today's day of social media, I'm not sure how players do it. I speak with Stephen Nicol or Craig Burley, any of the ex-players now, and it's unanimous. As a player, I don't think I'd had social media. I would not have had a Twitter account or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it may be. I just feel it opens you up for, again, that negative rhetoric, that negative feedback that is incessant and relentless on social media. Because, let's be honest, that's all they're there for people to make negative comments. And you don't need to expose yourself to that. Yes. You really don't.
Well, it certainly takes a special character. We're glad you're with us as well.
Still.
A unique position and a unique insight as well to one of the most difficult or challenging jobs on the football pitch. And again, I refer you to Mark Ogden's brilliant article over at our website for a great look inside the mind of a goalkeeper.